I just wanted to start out talking about, tell us a little bit about how BMW builds software. Where are you in your adoption of Agile and DevOps?
Thank you. We started with our Agile transformation in 2017, and the goal was to achieve 100% Agile. This objective was achieved in 2020. Currently, almost all of our projects working with an Agile approach. And to apply the DevOps approach, we left the typical project organization based on separation of application development and operations. And instead, we are working in product teams which are responsible for both development and operations.
And what have you seen in terms of results? Has it improved your release cycle time? You have faster feedback loops? Have you increased the amount of code you're writing? What are you seeing?
It's absolutely. We was able to absolutely speed up our software development, and our general goal was to be able to deploy 50 times a day for some applications, and really for these important applications we achieved this goal.
It's fantastic. So tell us a little bit about how you did security in the past. I understand you did a lot of penetration testing.
Since many years, established pen tests. These pen tests are mandatory for our products and applications, but they have several disadvantages, and they are very time consuming. A pen test takes, at BMW development, takes 1 week for execution.
Yeah.
Then the applications under pen test have to be almost complete at the end of development, but not earlier. And they also, the pen tests are quietly expensive.
Sure. And so what were some of the problems you experienced because of, pen testing being at kind of the end of the cycle and slow? What effect was that having on development?
We have our time to market is under risks. Sometimes we are not able to deliver the pen tests before we go live, and therefore sometimes we have to go live with our executed pen tests and retest them after go live, and this includes high risks, high security risks for the start of the application of go live.
Did you feel like the pen tests were repeatable, like that you were getting the same results every time, or do you feel like it was more, just whatever expert you got?
I guess it's almost repeatable because we have a very standardized rules for pen test execution, and we have several suppliers for pen test execution, and we established really detailed specified rules for pen test execution, so they are able to execute them. All the suppliers are able to execute them on same way.
Gotcha. And were you using other application security tools, besides pen test? What else were you doing for application security in the process? So
yes, of course, as I mentioned, we have the penetration tests in place, and then since several years we have also a SAST solution, static application security testing. It's actually static code analysis, and for this activities we have a Fortify SCA tool in place. Then we are also using dynamic application security test type, and for this we have Fortify Web Inspect. So, and finally, recently, since November 2020, we established our newest acquisition in our tool portfolio, an IaaS tool, Control SS. This tool is becoming a real success story for us. We started, as I mentioned, in November 2020, and now almost all our licenses, both in 2020, used up, and we have a high number of interesting applications. So we plan to increase the number of licenses soon.
It sounds like you had a pretty typical application security program, right? With pen testing and scanning of various kinds going on. What drove the decision to look at a security instrumentation-based approach like Contrast?
Our goals were to support our products to speed up the time to market, simultaneously to decrease security risks, and also very important was to automate all tests, even application security tests. And the next important point is for us the CI pipeline integration. And we knew that the IaaS approach is the most progressive, and we provided a deep tool market analysis in 2019, 2020, and very detailed evaluation of a short list of tools. And in this evaluation was Contrast Access a clear winner for us. It met actually all our requirements. And to your question, how important is continuous security? Also, continuous security is very important for us. Only application security tests provided continuously enable us to implement agile and DevOps approach. You are not able to deploy a couple of times a day if you haven't or if you have to execute manual tests before.
Yeah, we've seen that in a lot of organizations where the build pipeline has an SLA of 15 minutes, and if it's taking 4 hours to do a scan, you just can't fit that activity into the pipeline. So for the audience who might not be familiar with Contrast, would you take a minute and describe your take on how Contrast works and why it's different than static and dynamic tools?
We have different types of applications. We have our custom code applications and application sources. And for these applications, we are able to use static code analysis and integrate Contrast Access agents inside of these applications. But we have also commercial applications without any sources and without any source code. And therefore, we need for these applications, especially Dust, just to scan them over user interface.
So you mentioned Contrast works from inside the running application. I'll just take a second and add a little color to that. So Contrast works a lot like APM tools, performance management tools like New Relic or App Dynamics. You just add the Contrast agent to your application, and then you run it normally. And you don't have to do any security testing, but Contrast will be in the background doing that security testing. So in a way, it allows every developer to be able to do their own penetration testing. Is that a fair characterization for how BMW is using it?
Yes, we are using it on the same typical way, but we have also the pen tests are mandatory, still mandatory for our products. But we are switching the focus of the pen test more towards the business logic, because a tool is not able to verify the business logic from security perspective. Therefore, we are switching the penetration test towards business logic. But we use the advantages and benefits of Contrast Access for typical detection of vulnerabilities inside of code and running application.
Yeah, I think that's really smart. I think there's a huge shortage of application security specialists in the world, so it becomes very difficult to get a team together to do penetration testing and other hard things like threat modeling and security architecture and threat intelligence activities. And so I think shifting your security experts to focus on the really hard stuff, like business logic testing, for example, is really smart. And then use automation like Contrast to find the vulnerabilities that we encounter all the time, things like SQL injection and cross-site scripting and SSRF and XXE and so on.
Exactly.
So tell me, what was it like to deploy Contrast? how did that process work?
Our team and our solution are part of our product software delivery pipeline. It means we are offering solutions for software delivery for all the BMW Group projects. They can use our parts of our solutions, and the parts this software delivery pipeline product includes three stacks. The first stack is collaboration stack, based on Atlassian tools like Jira, Confluence, etc. Then we have a next step is continuous integration stack based on Jenkins and Bitbucket. And finally, our feature team for test automation of functional and non-functional tests, which includes our application security testing solutions as well. And the seamless integration of all these solutions, all these stacks and all these parts of software delivery pipeline is for us an essential point. Of course, we are in strong alignment with our cybersecurity department, which verifies the quality and completeness of the tools we are using and the vulnerabilities detected by the tools and so on.
Gotcha. I think that's pretty typical, is you can deploy contrast out relatively easily by just integrating that agent into your standard server environment, and then it just starts working in the background automatically. So you get rid of that, that scheduling the scans and babysitting the scans and all that kind of process. There's a good question in the chat here. Oh, I'm sorry. Did you want to comment?
Exactly. We are also supporting each application, each interesting projects by agent integration. We are also collaborating with your guys from UK and arranging sessions for integration of agents and make able to our projects to deal with and to work with contrast access. And it's also an essential point for the success of contrast access so far.
Do you find that once you get the contrast agent installed and running, that the amount of work involved with application security goes down?
Yes, of course, because they have the developers has immediately a view of their own findings, of their own vulnerabilities after the first finding are detected. I don't know, several seconds after the redeployment of the applications with the integrated agent. So the projects has immediately an awareness for their own findings or are affected on these findings, and they would get a lot of hints how to fix the findings and so on.
That's interesting. So that cuts down the feedback loop quite a lot, right? So if you're running a scan that takes a long time and then you have to triage the scan, it could be many hours or days or weeks until the developer gets feedback. How important is it to get instant feedback to developers?
Exactly. I could give us some examples, but for the other tools, especially Dust, Fortify Web Inspect, we need sometimes really a lot of hours to get a scan. We had already an application scan running by 5 days, and it's of course it's a lot of time, a lot of wasted time, or I don't know. By using of contrast access, you will get much faster the feedback, and you are able to talk with your developers and plan the fixes, schedule the fixes, and so on.
So the general consensus on static is that it generates a lot of false positives. How have you seen that with static tools, and then how does contrast compare at BMW?
I have not this experience so far. That some application or some developers would say we get a lot of false positives. I haven't seen a false positive so far by this usage of the applications. Currently we have around about 50 applications using contrast access. No one of these I don't know, mentioned they have a kind of false positives. It's a very, very good opportunity for us.
That's really, that makes me so proud. I mean, the reason that we created Contrast was because the traditional tools are quite error prone. And so what we wanted to do is focus on accuracy. We got speed as well, but getting that really tight feedback loop with accurate data to developers means developers can fix their own code and they get, security feedback in stride so that by the time they check in, software's secure and they can eliminate a lot of the downstream work of application security. There's a good question here in the chat. It says Fortify employs a deep flow analysis, which can take pretty long. What are acceptable analysis times to you, maybe compared to the build time?
We have no KPIs so far. It's a topic we plan for the next weeks to establish a KPIs. We have established more parallel Jenkins pipelines, and for these Fortify tools, we have a parallel Jenkins pipeline, and the deployment is independently from this Jenkins pipeline, and the developers can, after the completion of a Fortify pipeline, check the findings. Therefore, we have no time limits established so far.
The way I feel about it, the security testing, I mean, there's two ways to think about it. One is it fast enough for the overall build? And the second is is it fast enough for the developer to fix things without losing context? Either way, I think, the feedback needs to be very fast. It has to be within, a matter of minutes of when the developer made the mistake, because that's the most cost-effective time to make that fix. So, we're trying to really optimize that. It can't be days or weeks. It has to be really fast. So our average MTTR for vulnerabilities is about a day for most organizations. So we think that's a dramatic improvement over it's actually 4 to 5 months with static tools. I wanted to talk a little bit about how Contrast has affected your overall pen test process, and really focus on cost and time. Have you seen benefits?
Yes, of course. We are still on the beginning of our journey. As I mentioned, we have currently 50 applications integrated in Contrast SS, but we can already see the first benefits of Contrast SS usage. By the usage of Contrast Team Server, which is a kind of finding and vulnerability portal of Contrast SS, the product teams are able to see the findings permanently and can better handle with them. It means finding management is a real benefit for it. We are able to reduce the costs and efforts, especially for pen tests, because the applications go in the pen test with a lower number of typical security vulnerabilities, and they are able to pass the pen test at the first attempt, and therefore we don't need retests after fixing of detected vulnerabilities in pen tests. It means we are also saving costs, especially for retests, and also from my perspective, we have an additional benefit. The pen tester, as I mentioned, can more focus on the business logic, which is testable only by human tester, right, and not by a tool. Yes.
Yeah, that's fantastic. I think maybe the lesson for people listening is, don't think about running tools and doing pen testing on all the same stuff, but use a smart tool for automated application security, and then layer, pen testing on top for the things that automation can't do. Exactly. I think it's wasteful.
You can also reduce.
Try to test everything with both tools.
You can also reduce the frequency of your penetration tests. you don't need, I don't know, to provide a penetration test after each major release. Then I don't know, we plan to reduce the, in alignment with our cybersecurity department, we plan to reduce the frequency of penetration tests. I don't know, on spare 2, 3, or 5 years, depending on the criticality of the application.
That's smart. That seems like you could save a lot of money that way.
It's exactly.
It is. There's a question that says, do you utilize this tool only in the digital twin, or is this even in real hardware? I think the answer is that you just run contrast in your normal test environments, in your QA environments, wherever you're doing your CI/CD pipeline. It's not special hardware. It's just software that you add to your application. But Brono, tell me if you have a take on this question.
So exactly. We actually the system contrast data access is installed at the BMW on AWS private cloud, BMW private cloud. But our applications are typical web applications on AWS or our on-prem infrastructure. And everything what you need is to integrate a piece of code, a small file into depending on technology you are using. Actually, perhaps a jar file or a .NET file, and to integrate into your application, customize it, and the agent is as a part of your application, then working and observing the application, sending the findings to the team server.
There's another great question that says, do you apply quality gating? So, maybe no new level 1, 2, or maybe 3 allowed. I know Contrast enables you to do that, so you can, fail the build, or you can put other kind of gates in place based on your security. But I'm curious what BMW is doing.
Actually, this is a point we are planning for the next portal in this year, and I don't know, integration in Jenkins, integration Jira, integration Teams, and all our other existing integrations. And by the integration in Jenkins, we want to, and IDEs, we want to establish a kind of KPIs. And then during deployment and build to decide if the application will be deployed or not, depending on categories and of findings, detected findings.
I think that's smart. I look forward to working with you on that. We have a ton of great integrations into IDEs and chat tools and CI/CD tools and bug trackers and so on, because it's not really enough to just get the security results and put them in some dashboard somewhere. We want to get them to the people that need them through the tools they're already using. That shortens that feedback loop. It'll allow you to be much more effective about fixing vulnerabilities. And ultimately, that's what matters. It doesn't matter how many vulnerabilities you find if you don't fix any of them. So this is another way of getting those things, fixed and tracked. How do you feel that this approach has affected your application security team? Have you talked to developers about their experience with it?
Yes, I already mentioned we are permanently in alignment with our cybersecurity department, and currently each product has to provide pen tests on each major release. And now we are talking with them, with the cybersecurity department, which is responsible for establishing our application security rules. We are just provider of service, of solution, but cybersecurity is the makes the rules mandatory and so on. And we want to reduce together with them the demands for pen tests, and not after each major release. Instead every 5 or 3 or 5 release for applications using our solutions. And this will be very high cost and effort saving. And the feedback we have currently we have a very positive feedback from the developers, and most of them are very impressed by these tools. I could say they say to us, it's a very cool tool, much cooler than the other two tools we are using.
It is very different than, most people are used to scanning for security problems. And so running, continuous monitoring from inside the running application is a little bit different, but I do think your teams will really like it. There's a good question on here. Have you found larger issues, if you don't mind sharing, as Contrast's been successful at finding significant problems?
Yes, of course. Each application has their own findings and curricula. Of course, we are facing all findings of all categories, but this is a very internal stuff of each applications. Yes, of course. Yeah. But it's all categories of our top 10 we are facing permanently. It's actually, this is the reason to use the tool.
Every application has vulnerabilities. The key is to identify them early and fix them early so that they don't get into production. That's just responsible.
Yes, exactly. Yes.
Okay, so we're coming up on the end of our time here. I wanted to ask you if you have any lessons learned or key takeaways for those seeking to address the challenges around penetration testing and other forms of application security.
Yes, we do, of course. The automated security tests and pen tests are not in competition to each other. Even they complement each other. And the usage of automated security tests allows us to reduce the frequency of pen tests and simultaneously to switch the focus of pen tests towards business logic. That is actually the most important lesson learned so far. Yes, and it's a very, very impressive and progressive tool. It's a kind of, I don't know, a high catch of our tool portfolio.
Excellent. Well, thank you so much, Brono, for spending time with us this morning. It's awesome to hear about your AppSec program and how you're optimizing your pen testing with Contrast. I want to share a screen here real quick to just to point folks to the live demo. If you go to the virtual booth for Contrast, you can see a live demo of how Contrast finds vulnerabilities, how it analyzes your open source for vulnerabilities, and also we'll show you RASP. It's runtime protection for your application, so that even if you have these vulnerabilities and you're not able to fix them immediately, Contrast can protect those applications from being exploited. So it's really a complete platform for application security, and we'd love to show it to you. So please stop by the virtual booth. With that, I want to thank Brono again for joining us. He's been fantastic, and thanks again for your participation today.
You're welcome.
We do lots of metrics on lots of applications, across tens of thousands of applications across all different industries. And, I think at the top of the list is always access control issues, SQL injection. We see a lot of cross-site scripting and file path traversal. All those tend to be the biggest vulnerabilities. But, from a risk perspective, a company like BMW is going to be worried about data disclosure. They're going to be worried about compromising their servers, integrity problems. Also, reputation damage for a company like that is really important. Those are kind of the outcomes, but the vulnerabilities that lead to those outcomes are the typical kinds of stuff. I wrote the OS Top 10 in 2002, and it's still kind of the same stuff that we're worried about. So unfortunately, we haven't made a huge amount of progress in AppSec.
That's so cool though. So I was planning to ask, like, why actually have you been participating in your company, or why you actually made it happen? So what's your story?
Well, I spent 15 years as a consultant working side by side with application development teams and doing pen testing and code reviews and architecture reviews and threat modeling and so on. And I just saw, most AppSec programs are really struggling under the speed of development, plus the inefficiencies of the existing tools like SAST, DAST, and WAF. They all generate a lot of errors, which means if the tools have errors, then you have to have experts involved to clean up the errors, and that means they're not really automated. And so our mission is to try to fully automate as much of application security as we can, so that you can push code through the pipeline into production quickly. And that's that's our mission. That's why we're doing this.
That's why I believe we are all here. So thanks.
Yeah.
Thanks a lot, Jeff. And I need to introduce the next guest. So.
Okay. Thanks, everybody.
Thank you very much on my behalf. It was an interesting talk.